People tell of its glowing red eyes and glistening fangs, and of how the beast lurks in the forest, preying on goats and cattle, terrifying local residents. The creature acts much like a vampire, killing animals by sucking their blood. It's the Chupacabra. Welcome to Truly Terrified, Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff, and Joe the scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn, and
I'm Joe.
First, I just want to point out that while I believe in plenty of things that are considered paranormal, some things are just so explainable as to be unbelievable. And the Chupacabra is one.
Yeah.
So, Chupacabra literally means goat sucker. It's a mythical creature or cryptid found in the folklore of various parts of the Americas. Its name originates from its supposed habit of vampirism, as it reportedly attacks and feeds on the blood of livestock, particularly goats. Physical descriptions of the Chupacabra vary. In Puerto Rico and Hispanic America, so I suppose that would mean Central America and South
I think
America.
it's primarily Mexico that they report it, right?
I think it's everywhere.
The goat sucker they report everywhere.
Puerto Rico and Southwestern America.
Oh, yeah,
and,
Southwest.
Yeah.
True.
So it's generally described as being hefty, reptilian, almost alien-like, and approximately the size of a small bear. Again, size, you can't go by size because people
misestimate size all the time.
They misestimate it all the time. It's adorned with a row of spines running from its neck to the base of its tail. And in the southwestern United States, it's often portrayed as more resembling, wait for it, a dog.
The row of spines makes me think of an iguana.
The row of spines makes me think about how that's the last hair that a mangy dog loses. And it sticks up. Reports of the creature have surfaced as far north as Maine and as far south as Chile. So that's a big area. There have even been alleged sightings outside of the Americas in countries like Russia and the Philippines. But those reports are mostly anecdotal and have generally been dismissed due to a lack of corroboration or evidence. Instances of the creature in northern Mexico and the southern United States have been confirmed as canids, like dogs, wolves, coyotes, afflicted with mange. Initial sightings and descriptions emerged in Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, in 1975, when the first sightings were reported, it was pretty much a rural island. You know, it was rural land. People were living as they had lived for a long time. I think the big influx in tourism has happened later. So there was a string of livestock killings in the small town of Moca, and it was linked to El Vampiro de Moca, the vampire of Moca. And initially, suspicions fell on a satanic cult as the perpetrators. But more killings occurred across the island, and there were numerous farms reporting significant losses of animal life. Each victim exhibited signs of being drained of blood through a series of small incisions. Again, these are people reporting this, probably people who were uneducated. Not that all rural people are uneducated, but in 1975, I think there were probably a greater number of rural people were uneducated. The first documented attack that was attributed to actual chupacabras took place in March 1995. 8 sheep were discovered dead in Puerto Rico. 8. That's it. 8. Each had puncture wounds in the chest area and were reportedly completely drained of all blood.
Sounds like the abductions.
It also sounds like the stories of the animal mutilations across
cat or abductions, cattle mutilations kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So several months after those 8 sheep were found dead, in August, an eyewitness named Madeline Tolentino claimed to have spotted the creature in the Puerto Rican town of Canovanos, where up to 150 farm animals were supposedly killed. The most frequently reported depiction of the Chupacabra describes it as a reptilian creature featuring leather or scaly greenish-gray skin and adorned with sharp spines or quills along its back. It stands around 3 to 4 feet tall, and it moves by both standing and hopping, resembling the gait of a kangaroo. So that emerged mostly from those initial sightings in Puerto Rico in 1995. And so similar accounts have now cropped up in regions of Chile and Argentina since then. Let's just talk about our own personal experience with an animal with mange, what they look like. Walter.
Yeah, Walter the dog. He had scaly skin. Yeah. Of course, he was a cute little dog, and you could tell, but...
And his skin was slightly grayish, whether that was because of yeast growing on his skin or, because that is one of the side effects of it, or whether that's his natural color of skin, which may be because we don't shave Walter the dog. Mm-hmm. And along the ridge of his spine, his hair stuck up.
Yeah, which kind of makes... I mean, if it's for whatever reason, mange doesn't cause hair loss there, that's would be a typical place to expect hair, the only potential hair. And it does get really bad, like to the point where they look like hairless cats.
Yes.
But dogs.
And when you look at hairless dogs, their bone, especially when they're thin, their bone structure makes their eyes look bulgy. Their heads are much smaller than you think they are. So... Yeah, and they don't look like what you think of a dog looking like, because mainly what we see when we look at a dog is we're seeing all the extra padding from the fur. So let me just remind you of what mange is. It's a skin disease. It affects mammals, and it's caused by microscopic mites that burrow into the skin. Puppies usually get it from their mothers right after they're born, and then it stays with them. There are different species of mites that can cause it. And so sarcoptic mange generally affects wild and domestic animals and is often reported in wild canids such as red foxes, coyotes, gray wolves, and red wolves. So it goes the gamut. Dogs, canids, whether they're domesticated dogs or it's a wild wolf, they all can get mange. And it's contagious because the mites can get off one animal and get onto another animal. And the mothers... in the little burrow with her babies, she gives it to her babies, and then her babies have it. So it isn't like it's an illness, although they certainly get sick because they are sick. They get an overabundance of yeast in their bodies. They are weaker. They're probably have secondary infections from scratching. So there are lots of other things that go along with that. And during a drought, here you have a weak animal. Food is less available. It's that. What would you do? You'd go after domesticated animals. Also, domesticated dogs, somebody has a dog with mange, they might just drop it off on a country road, not knowing really that you can treat mange and make it go away. So one of the descriptions that comes up a lot is that it's a variety. A Chupacabra is a variety of wild dog. Like, you have wolves, have coyotes.
And then you have your Chupacabra.
They say Chupacabra are hairless, spinal ridge, pronounced eye sockets. Again, think about that poor dog with no hair. So you can see his bone structure. He's skinny because he's not doing well. Fangs. Yes, believe it or not, dogs have fangs. And claws. They also have claws. Yeah, it's a dog. It's a sick dog. Or a sick wolf, or a sick coyote, or a sick fox.
Now consider what it would take for it not to be. So, for instance, if it was a lizard, so we're just talking about not dog.
Okay.
If it was a lizard, it would have to be a very unique lizard, or people are misreporting its characteristics. So it would have to be a lizard with long legs, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how it's...
And a 3-foot tall one.
So that's really unlikely. Way less likely than it being something that's like a dog, that's actually its own species. You could say, well, okay, maybe it's something that is like almost extinct. So it's very rarely seen, but it's an animal. And so, presumably maybe. And now maybe it's completely extinct, so people, can't take pictures of it in the age of pictures.
Except it's not completely extinct because people are still seeing
them. Reporting it. So, again, it's like you're circling the drain of the truth. And so every time you say, okay, maybe it could be this, you're pretty much brought back to something that's just way more likely. Pushing it really far. I mean, like, for instance, if somebody believes in ghosts, then potentially that's a ghost-like thing. A thing that's in the same category as ghosts, you know? And then it explains why they can't take pictures of it, or there are no pictures of it. Explains why it's not all over it's not present all over the place in the sense that you can just go out and find one.
There have been photographs that people have taken of, air quotes, Chupacabra, and it has been determined by most people that look at it, it's a dog with mange. But there was a lady who had a Chupacabra attack at her rural home somewhere down south. I'm thinking it was Texas, but it might have been someplace else. And she found the body of it. Maybe she shot it, I don't remember. And so they called the animal control and they sent out a vet to take DNA off of this body, and they determined that it was a dog. It was a dog. It was an extremely mangy, sickly, pitiful dog. So people do take pictures of them, but when you think about, so here's an example. Foxes exist. There are foxes in our neighborhood.
And they're rarer than dogs.
And it's really hard to get a picture of a fox. Wolves exist. Man, I've heard wolves in the night. I've never seen a wolf.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Like, for instance, coyotes, you'll know they're around because you hear them at night. And sometimes people see them, but it's still rare to see a picture of one. Like, for instance, in Wisconsin, there's loads of coyotes. But people don't take pictures of them. One, they're in the forest, so they're hard to... And two, why would you?
And also they move fast because they're wanting to avoid people.
Yeah.
Okay, bears. We know bears exist.
There's a lot of bears.
We've been in our woods and seen bears scat out there.
I've seen bears.
I've seen bears. I've never taken a picture of a bear.
No.
Because I'm not going to hang around and take a picture of a bear.
Yeah, that's one thing. You see a bear, you get out of there.
Yeah.
And presumably you see a creepy cryptid, you get out of there.
Yeah, you see an animal that is, got a ridge of hair standing up on its back. It's gray and leathery. Its eyes are bulging.
So to me, that says too that there's something to be said about, okay, maybe it is just a remarkably rare creature to see. Of course, it wouldn't be widespread then. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if it was the Loch Ness Monster, that sort of thing, it's one thing in one area. It's rare to see it, which makes sense, but it's not all over the world. If it's all over the world, then it's less rare to see it.
Right.
So you can't really have your cake and eat it too. If somebody reports something, whatever it is, they have control to some degree over what everyone else thinks it was. You could say it's anything, and you could pivot from one thing to the other depending on how you want people to perceive it. That's the variable part. The variable part is that people have the ability to say whatever it is, whatever they want people to think it is, whether they believe it too or not. So the fact that they're reporting something, a chupacabra, which presumably they don't know what it actually is. If it was a chupacabra, they don't know what it actually is. They don't have any experience with chupacabra. There's no memes about chupacabra. There's no cultural understanding of chupacabra. It's just people have seen this thing from a distance or whatever. So there's this low information thing, and people have this ability to, there's this wide range of what they can say about it. And so you find like, over here in Puerto Rico and down here in Chile and whatever. The commonality between them isn't that there's this creature that's across that area. The commonality is that people have the ability to say it was that.
Right. Okay, so imagine this. This is just, going off on woo. So imagine that the chupacabra, if somebody sees a chupacabra, they are seeing a mangy dog.
Yeah.
Or a mangy wolf or a mangy canid.
Mm-hmm.
What if those animals are drained of blood because of the animal mutilations from aliens?
Yeah, so this is, I've kind of, over episodes, I've kind of like been saying this more and more. If you believe one of these things, it opens up possibilities for the other things. So like, for instance, you believe aliens. Now if you also believe in chupacabras, you have to explain that.
Okay, so if you believe in chupacabras and you believe the animals that are drained of their blood were drained of their blood by chupacabras, what I'm saying is maybe they believe those mangy dogs are chupacabra, and they're believing they're sucking the blood out because they're finding these animals, but in fact,
it's aliens.
The chupacabra haven't done it. Or the government. It's some other entity.
I call it subject level epistemology. You're floating above all the possible explanations, and you're saying, here's the boundary, what it could be. And you say, I'm not even gonna go into that boundary. You say, it's probably this, but there's a range of possibilities. Like, for instance, the mutilations, cattle mutilations all over the world, whatever. Maybe it's aliens. Maybe it's the government. I'm not going to commit and say it is aliens.
Yeah, I agree.
It is the government. I'm going to float above it and say, well, yeah, here's an explanation. Here's an explanation. Right. This is the most likely explanation. But
well, the mangy dogs, I am quite certain, are not sucking the blood out of these animals. And if they were killing the animals, they would eat the animals. And apparently these animals are effectively drained of blood. And
don't they eat the blood?
Well, yeah, but if you were a hungry dog with mange, you would eat more than the blood.
So you're trying to explain
I don't
blood sucking.
I don't think the dead animals are related to the mangy dogs.
Here's what I think. I think this is the most likely explanation. The blood thing it's just what happens to some dead animals.
Especially
they look
during
like
a
that.
drought. Yeah.
It's the same thing with the cattle mutilation. I don't know that, but that seems the most likely. And the mangy dog thing, it just so happens that there are also mangy dogs, Though again, okay, consider this. This is actually sort of in the realm of an explanation that certain people give. Idealism is true, so there's no physical reality. It's just potentially a collection of minds that are constructing a consensus reality or something. In that framework, there could both be mangy dogs and chupacabras and everything. At that point, so I guess what I'm trying to say is there could be lots of exotic explanations. Lots and lots and lots and lots.
Sure, there could be.
And so I guess it's, what do you want to commit to,
Right. Okay, so I feel like this. I feel like mangy canids exist. We know they exist. They exist in the wilds. They exist in domesticated situations. They exist. We know that. In fact, Dr. David Morales, a Puerto Rican veterinarian with the Department of Agriculture, analyzed 300 reported victims of the chupacabra. 300. And none of them had been bled dry. None of them. So it's the people's perception saying they were bled dry. So they're not bled dry. Mm-hmm. We know mangy canids exist. There have been no proven sightings that somebody could absolutely rule out that it was a mangy canid of a chupacabra. The bodies that have been found of what people said were chupacabra were proven to be mangy dogs or mangy canids. So there's nothing to this. The chupacabra simply does not exist. There may be dogs, there's certainly Chihuahuas who have a weird little ridge of fur on their back and they've got weird bulgy eyes, but they're not 3 feet tall.
It's a huge Chihuahua.
Oh, that's terrible.
So that actually brings up another point. So you have then the second order explanations. So for instance, you have an explanation like like the government came out and did a study and they determined none of the cattle were blood dry. That's the first order. Now you have to explain whether or not that's true. So this is something a lot of people get lost on.
Yeah.
Lost or they're right. That, like, for instance, the government is lying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's possible. Again, within the realm of possibility, it is possible that the government is lying or they're incompetent. Like the guy who did the thing and he found no evidence that any of them were blood dry. Maybe he was biased. And so he was interpreting. It's like the UFO stuff. The several directors of the organizations across in the government were very highly biased. And they were certainly labeling, like their final conclusion on certain cases was also biased. Probably to the point where it should have been labeled as something else. It's like saying the Chupacabra stories are angels from another dimension and they're coming to pull our life force or whatever. Do you really want to go that far? Do you really want to take so many steps into a point where it's changing a lot about our understanding of reality?
Yeah.
And so even ghosts, it's a long walk to there relative to it's a dog, You know what I mean? Like,
I think that what anybody should do when they're trying to determine whether they're going to believe or not believe in something that something like Chupacabra or whatever that may be, they should first say, is there any other reasonable explanation?
Yeah. And potentially not just any other reasonable explanation, but any other explanation in general. Like, for instance, what I'm doing right now, it's a lizard alien from a reptilian planet, But how likely is that? And now take all the possible explanations and look at which ones are most likely,
Yeah.
For instance, it doesn't take much for a dog to have mange and be in Puerto Rico. It doesn't take much for a cow to die and its body does weird things when it's dead. It's dead.
Bodies desiccate.
So versus, okay, how'd the alien get here? How does it remain undetected?
Right. I think it's fun to think about those other things, but for the sake of being able to understand the world around you, you should not put too much stock into things when there is another explanation. And in this case, we have mangy canids. These animals weren't particularly eaten. They just say they were drained of blood. So animals die, their bodies become desiccated, mangy canids exist. Why would you think they're a chupacabra? And if someone disagrees with me, I want to hear their argument. I want to hear what they have to say.
So that another point along those lines is some people might have few cases of evidence that really looks like it points to something particular.
They have few or they have a few?
Just a few cases of better evidence for something exotic or something that's not, the most obvious explanation. And in those cases, I would say it's really important to get some guarantees that evidence is even related to the bulk of the cases, because there are extraordinary cases for things all over the place with everything. There's extraordinary evidence for just stuff, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this much more likely, much more common phenomena, So, like, for instance, if the cattle are all being mutilated and you say it's desiccated corpses from just natural, and then someone says, okay, look at this perfectly smooth cylinder we found in a cow that was desiccated. It has to be artificial. That particular case might just be an extraordinary. It just might, maybe the cow stepped on something or something. It has nothing really to do with the bulk of the cases, which is a much more common phenomena.
Right.
So that would be a case of like bad induction, taking a few cases that are actually unrelated to the general phenomena and abstracting to the general phenomena. And that's one of the critical, most critical and difficult parts of trying to understand everything. The reality is you can't get a guarantee that this thing, this evidence or whatever, is related to this concept or whatever. And it's, in order to be right, in order to be not wrong, and I should say, that means then being able to predict stuff in the future, you have to just be really diligent to get it right. And that means making sure you're not extrapolating too much, making sure your evidence is solid and points to the correct thing. I mean, the correct thing, it points to the thing you're investigating. You see it very frequently. It's typically an obsessive thing, that my observation, it's an obsessive thing. Somebody will look at details, like specific cases. I think they call it cherry picking. Like in the media, you'll see cherry picking a lot. People will focus on isolated cases and extrapolate it to the general phenomenon, and that's very wrong. And there's the reverse too, going from general cases to specific, and it's all a bad idea. So anyway, how that relates to the chupacabra is all the cases we see might not actually be as in common as we think. It's just really important to look at the most likely explanation to the most likely general phenomena. And as far as I can tell, it's almost certainly that it's a mangy dog. It would be in the category of, I'd bet money on it. If God came down and revealed the truth of everything, and we could confirm the bets and get our money, whoever wins, I would expect to win money off that bet. Unfortunately, it's not that obvious or clear ever, so we won't know. We'll never know. There will always be folk legends of something like that, as long as there are dogs.
Yep, you're right. Our contact information is in the show notes. You can email us, text us, or even call and leave a 3-minute voicemail. And as always, if you have a story you want to tell, send it to us. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run
from the chupacabra. I bet they can't run very fast. They're too itchy.